When you get this job, I'll only take like 60% of the credit.
That's fine.
I'll give you 40. I
appreciate that. I mean, I did everything up until this point myself.
You did a lot of good work. Don't sell yourself short. I will definitely give you 40%.
Thank you. I'll argue about the other half of that later.
You've earned it. All right. Welcome back to Eyes Wide, the podcast, where we talk about doing the hard things in life and business and the beautiful intersection of it all. I am so excited today because I have a guest that I consider one of the most diligent and driven salespeople I've ever met. Two, since meeting him when we had our first interview, he's quickly and effectively become one of my best friends. And so I am so excited to finally, because it hasn't been easy getting this individual on the podcast, but I'm so excited to finally welcome Jordan Garner to Eyes Wide.
Thanks, Craig, for having me here. It's not just me that's a challenge to find a time to sit down and spend an hour or two. So not just me. I want to put that out there.
No, I understand that. Life gets tough. The seasons of life are real, aren't they?
As you know, my season right now is sports 24/7. So, we talked earlier, I just got back from soccer practice, daughter's at volleyball practice. So it's something at all times.
And then, so it's funny because, I met you at a startup venture that we both worked at for quite a while, and you kind of start to forget when you're running really hard and you're trying to accomplish all of these big things in a short period of time. You start to forget how much people have in their actual home lives, in their family life, how much work they have to do once they're not on company time. That oftentimes gets forgotten, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think, when in doing the startup, I was always big boxes. And so when I came to the startup, I think it's easy to get caught up in, especially when you have a motivator like yourself and you get brought on, you kind of get caught up in the day-to-day grind. And individuals like us who like the grind and find some sort of winning and some sort of satisfaction in the grind, I think it's easy to get caught up and distance yourself from the home life side and bury yourself in the work, so to say.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first left CVRX, I started looking first and foremost for chief revenue officer roles or chief commercial officer roles, and the companies that I was starting to speak to, they had responsibilities all over the world. And talk about, when you're in the midst of it and running hard in the startup world, you're just spinning every single week and you're on the road and you're doing all these things. And I started really reflecting and just saying, do I want to jump right back into something with global responsibilities and being gone all over again every single week?
And how'd that work out?
It worked out really well. I'm very fortunate with how things worked out with me not jumping into one of those gigs, and that's why sometimes the first, second offer isn't always the best offer. You got to actually really think about what it is you want for you personally, not just getting a job for the sake of getting a job or getting a really important job because you feel like that's what you're supposed to do at this time in your life, is get some kind of really important job that's going to cause all sorts of additional stress on you and your family, and really think about what's important in this season of your life.
I think it's a topic that a lot of people just kind of skip over. And I think that us recently can kind of talk about it because we just went through that period of time where you kind of go through that oh crap moment where you might get let go from a company where you saw yourself in the long term, and kind of you step back. And where I found myself was, I was like, well, do I just take a job to take care of my family and be that support person that you're supposed to be, of a father, of a husband, of a caregiver, versus where you feel like you can really have an impact, and not just in the short term, but a long term that you're going to love and be able to grow at. And so it was a challenging time for me. I don't know how I did feel some sort of peace in that particular time, just because I felt like for me, it was a time where I kind of said, oh crap. And I really had to find myself. I went from being a sales rep, as you know, to leading a sales team. And so that was my first time to ever lead a sales team, which I really enjoyed it. I loved the day-to-day, getting to know the reps, not just in a business setting, but in their personal setting, to saying, now I got to grind again. So I found myself saying, oh, can I really grind again? Like, am I really tough enough to do that again? And so, as you know, I started doing 75 hard, and a lot of people were like, what goals were you trying to achieve physically from 75 hard? And it wasn't a physical goal for me. It was more of a mental goal to myself to say, I need to sharpen the mental sword again. And I need to challenge myself with hard things to make sure that I can go out there and prepare myself to win on a daily basis for the battle of sales. And so that's where I found myself.
I think so. I mean, you just tapped into a lot of different things, and you know, you and I think from the first time we met, we knew that we were going to be friends. It was one of those moments, like right as stepbrothers. Like, did we just become best friends? Yes. And so our philosophies on life and business, they align quite a bit. I am not scared or I'm not ashamed to admit that you might even be a little bit more hardcore than me, and when I say might, I'm admitting that, yes, you are more hardcore than I am. It was next level when we would go to sales meetings and I would see you walking around and carrying the cooler that you brought with you that you traveled with. And I'm not talking about a little packet. I'm talking about a full-on cooler, bro, to everyone listening. And this dude needed to have all of his meal prep and his meals planned out for however long he was going to be at whatever destination we were at. So it was impressive to see. And I think that diligence and that determination carries over into everything you do. I think that's trying to separate out how people are in business and in life. For me, I think it's an exercise in futility. I think how you are in life is oftentimes how you are in business. I think it's a big time rarity that people are different in their personal lives with how they go about their lives and how they go about their business. That's why physical fitness is something that's so important to me, and people that actually figure out ways to get to the gym, to exercise, not just because you want to look good, not just because you want to feel good. Those are important things. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But you mentioned doing the hard things. And I say this time and time and time again. It's not about what you're doing. It's about the fact that you're doing it because you know damn well you don't want to do it. And it's whether it's cold plunging or just doing hard 75, you know, cold plunge, do I believe that it's healing you as soon as you get in the water, you're staying for 3, 4, 5 minutes? I don't know. Do I notice a difference other than all of my joints hurting like hell and, you know, it taking me 5 hours to actually warm up after I do it? I don't know. I can't really feel it, but here's what I do know. I know that not everyone can do what I just did. I know that everyone can't just walk into a pool or a bath that's 46, 45, 44 degrees and sit in there for 4 minutes because the human body doesn't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And it's even harder when it's freaking cold outside. And say, okay, now jump in the water, disrobe, take that sweatshirt off and jump in 48-degree water. And it's like, no, that shit's terrible. I don't want to do it. And as soon as in my head I say I don't want to do it, guess what? I know I'm screwed because I know as soon as I say I don't want to do it, I got to do it.
Yep. So I would just like to note that we jumped in the ocean together. What month was that in? December, January?
That was January, San Diego.
January, San Diego.
That was real deal. That was
real deal.
Yeah, that's real deal. Cool. And it's funny because I wanted to do it, but I kind of didn't want to do it. And then you were like, let's do it. I didn't know if you were really serious. And next thing I knew, man, we were stripping down to the skivvies in front of God and everyone at the global sales meeting and heading on to the Pacific. It was damn good.
So let me ask you this question. So you said that you think it's a rarity that people act different in their work life versus their home life. It's kind of the same. You get the same person, right? Do you think that's a positive thing, or do you see that as a negative thing?
It's a damn good question. I think so. Let me say it differently. I believe you can be different, Especially you see it, I mean, you have a daughter, I have two daughters. And so the way you act with your daughters is clearly going to be different than how you would operate with subordinates or colleagues or bosses. So it's not completely one-to-one, but I'm big on talking about self-reliance and full ownership, Jocko Willington, extreme ownership, stuff like that. And really being able to accept the positives and the negatives, the good and the bad, the achievement and failure. And so I believe that when people adopt that philosophy in life, they're more likely to adopt that philosophy in work. And how that truly translates out, and I see this in my day-to-day in sales leadership, it's you have people that constantly, when they don't hit the mark, when they don't achieve what they're supposed to achieve, it becomes an exercise in making sure that they understand, or that I understand, that they fully understand what's going on, that they can convey to me all of the reasons why they didn't achieve their goals and hit their mark, versus someone who is going to go above and beyond to recognize when they're slipping a little bit, or they ultimately don't achieve what they meant to achieve, and fully embrace that. And they just say, I didn't deliver. I didn't take the right steps, the right actions. I didn't look at the right metrics to ensure that I was going to achieve what I needed to achieve for myself and the organization. And that's a different mindset. And once you adopt more of that mindset, this extreme ownership, this full ownership, the good and the bad, things start to work out a little differently for you, because you're starting to really learn what it is to control the variables you can control, to accomplish the goals you can control. And when you have full ownership of those things, and you're out in front of potential pitfalls or hindrances to those successes, you just learn how to overcome. You learn how to get around things that jump out in front of you, versus, again, at the end of a quarter, at the end of the year, just having a discussion, explaining all the reasons why you didn't do what you needed to do.
Yeah, I see it. I think if you have the used car salesman outside in the day-to-day, I think you're a used car salesman in your sales career, right? I think it's more times than not, I think you're right. Whoever you're getting on the street is who you're getting in the professional world as well. But you talk about something there that interests me, because it was a time in my career at CVRX where I really took a step back and said, he's right. And that was when I forgot exactly what the topic was, and you'd asked me a question if I had done something. And my answer to you was, well, I sent the email to my manager, basically passing the buck. And your response was, why didn't you do that? And I was like, well, I don't know, I gave it to my manager. And you were like, take ownership, as if that you were doing it, you were the manager, you were doing the job. And so at that point forward, I was like, you know what, I can do that. You gave me full confidence in myself that I could do anything that anybody else could do. And so I started looking at my territory different. I started looking at my business different, where I was like, instead of having somebody else send an email, or instead of sending an email to the internal team to send it to somebody else, I would go straight to that person, or I would send the email myself to whoever I needed to, and just I didn't want to say cutting my manager out, but essentially just doing the job, everything that I could do myself, and controlling all the controllables myself. Because once you send it to somebody else, you're taking some of the controllables out of your hands and putting it in somebody else's hands. And I think that's something that a lot of salespeople need to learn. And I think it's ultimately falls back on the leadership of who's around you, and can they help you learn that when you don't need that, or you don't have that direction.
Yeah, I mean, you're tapping into a ton of different things. So first and foremost, I remember a few conversations between you and I about taking ownership of certain situations, but I remember that one distinctly. And I remember it unlocking something inside of you, because as we've mentioned, as I think we mentioned here, is you came from bigger companies. And I see this time and time again, people coming from bigger companies, it's not that they can't be successful in a startup world or in a smaller company world situation, but they have to quickly understand that they didn't like the situation that they were in, or it needed to come from within, that what they were experiencing wasn't what they could truly offer. And if that switch clicks in your mind, I think you're then ready to take the step from a big box, like one of the big medical manufacturers, and go to a smaller opportunity, because you're going to learn quickly there's nowhere to hide. It's you, and you got to get it done. And so I remember the conversation we had about that had to do with reaching out to this administrator somewhere. And I'm like, why? What are you waiting for here? This is you. No one knows your geography like you know the geography. No one knows the customers like you know the customers. And oh, by the way, life is too short to have a fucking telephone game about business that you're trying to accomplish, because time is of the essence. Messages get mixed. Time gets wasted before you know it. You missed the ability to actually have a pertinent conversations with someone because you're waiting on some other information. It's no good. So I am big on people taking initiative. And I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast before, but Tom Moore, he just became a CEO, president and CEO of a company out of Europe in the urology world. And I mean, Tom was one of my favorite bosses ever. He and this other person recruited me over to CVRX the first time. The second time they recruited me over, it was all him, and he and I worked very closely, and we got along amazingly well. It was crazy because we were different people. He was more soft-spoken and very, very thoughtful and always thinking through things. He didn't use 7 words when he can use 3. And he was just a remarkable person. And I learned such an important lesson from him so early on, especially stepping away from, at that time, I was with Gilead Sciences or St. Jude at the time. I can't remember anymore. And I was used to being put in a framework, in a silo, be like, this is your role. The minute that you start to step into these aspects of the business, someone else needs to step in and take care of that for you. And so I got very comfortable and aware that I had my lane, and then other people had their lanes, and they were supposed to take care of business. And I remember we were trying to run quick. I was trying to bring these different studies to all places across the whole western half of the US. And in order to discuss the clinical trial, I thought that we needed to have our clinical sciences or our clinical scientists come out to the sites to discuss the clinical opportunity and the patient recruitment, what the inclusion criteria would be, the mechanism of action, the science behind the therapy. And so the company was based in Minnesota. And so I was on the West Coast. They would fly out to Vegas, Southern California, Northern California, out in Seattle. And I was having these guys ping pong back and forth. And I think the scientists were finally starting to get tired of it. So I was doing my job. I was getting a lot of activity and a lot of interest in starting in this study with us. And I'm like, one of the scientists pushed back and it's like, can't be there. I'm like, I got this important dinner. And the scientist is like, I can't be there. And so I called the other scientist, like, I can't be there either. So I call up Tom and I said, hey, Tom, we got an issue. Like, I got this big dinner set up. They're ready to rock and roll. The scientists are refusing to get on a plane and head out and help me out with this dinner. And he didn't respond right away. Like I said, he definitely was very thoughtful in how he would respond and what he would say. And I was like, hello, Tom, did I lose you? And I'll never forget these words. Quiet. And all of a sudden he says, what the fuck did I hire you for?
Yep. I knew that was coming.
And as soon as he said those words, I became a different person. I was forever changed. I realized right then and there that the company and he was looking for me to provide something that they don't currently have. That I needed to actually produce something myself. I needed to be the guy out in the West taking care of business. And once I got that mindset, I never stopped.
Yeah, and that's a great story. I think we all have, as we age ourselves in sales, I think we all have some moments that we kind of hold dear because it changed our direction. That conversation between you and I was one that will always change my career, because now I always take hold of what I can control and don't put my sales career in anybody else's hands.
You have to react with what you're given. Your next offensive move is based off how what the defense presented you with. There's people that control the playing field, understand what's in front of them, and develop a plan, an offensive strategy based on how that defense, the customer, oppositions, objections are presented in front of them. And that is the matrix.
I'm still a little hurt that you did a Setbacks podcast without me. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, that setback podcast, that was a night before I was going under the knife. That was the night before I was going to have surgery. And I mean, I've had procedures done before, but that was probably the first real, I messed myself up pretty good and I needed someone to repair something that I did. And so, I mean, I'm not afraid to share that I was definitely scared, but yeah, I just wanted to get on the mic and kind of just share some thoughts, and just because it's when you start to think about the setbacks in life, and whether it's business, whether it's personal life. I mean, we can get into the setbacks in business. I don't know what hits harder, business setbacks or injury setbacks, but they're both pretty profound. I actually think the business setbacks last a little bit longer than the physical injuries. But yeah, it's very cathartic just to talk through it and listen to the comments of others and talk through your own kind of mindset and headspace to make sure that you remember to practice what it is you preach, to be strong, that you can overcome anything, and just stay diligent, stay on task, be strong, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah. There's a, you hit on a lot there for me. I'll touch on the last point when you talk about, it's a mindset, right? And I recently just got this bracelet that said mindset is everything. And, when it very first happens, you're like, great, it's the end of the world, right? I'm not going to do the competition for you. For me, it's, different things, but, you're a big Jocko guy. So then it goes to, I love when, I don't know if it's in a book or I've heard his podcast or whatever, when something happens, they're like, good. You're like, I lost a sale today. Good. Like I tore my bicep. Good. I tore my MCL. Good. And, I went around for the longest time around my house, and anytime anything negative would happen around my house, my answer was good. My son was like, yeah, I hurt my foot. And I'm like, good. And it annoyed every single person. But it was an eye-opener to me that when I complained about something, my 10-year-old at the time looked at me and said, good. And then I was like, whoa, it's that powerful of a mindset. But then it's also a reminder that you constantly have to work at that mindset. You constantly have to grind and keep that safe. That I think keeping your mindset is in your mental game strong might be the most important thing that we do, not just on the personal level or the business level. I heard the saying one time that lazy people hate hard workers and hard workers hate lazy people. And then lazy people do a little bit and think they're doing everything, and hardworking people do a lot and then think they're not doing enough. And so I constantly find myself doing everything that I can, and I'm like, it's not enough. So there's a little bit of mindset there where I say, hey, you have to control your mindset, and you have to continue to keep that safe on a daily basis.
I love that. So first off, that's Saban. That's Nick Saban talking to the team. Mm-hmm. Yep. And when I heard him say that, I was like, holy shit. Because, I mean, let's face it, there's different people. There's different people in this world, in this life. And driven people and people that are okay with being mediocre aren't always going to get along in the sandbox.
Yeah.
It's like a different religion. It just is, because an undriven person who's okay being mediocre is never going to understand why the person with endless drive wants to keep pushing and is never satisfied. And the driven person is never going to understand how the unremarkable person, the one that's okay with being mediocre, doesn't want more for themselves, doesn't have any drive at all. And that is a monster mindset difference. I was just talking about this on the last podcast I had on a buddy of mine, Mark Rienzo, and he's in the visual effects world. And it's a different world, obviously, than sales and business. And we're talking about management or reflection, if you will, like the their version of game film review that would be in football, like looking at things.
Yep.
And we're talking about how in all different aspects of business, anytime there's a coaching opportunity, it's difficult as me being a sales leader, but also, I've got a boss, I've got a CEO, and I've learned a long time ago that even when I think I am completely nails, I'm just nailing it, I still know that I need to be at the leading edge of asking for coaching. What could I have done better? And so that's really tough. And this was not easy for me to understand. And this took some serious ass coaching, and it took some real, self-reflection and self-work to be okay with, even when I think I've done a really good job, to request coaching. Just tell me there's got to be something that I could improve. And when you have that mindset, it just makes it so one, it makes it so much less uncomfortable. And then two, you don't have to feel the person getting coached, the person that's about to have some constructive criticism doesn't have to feel put off, doesn't have to come from this framework of, yo, I did everything perfect. You're coming at me for, one play, like a football player, your son, he took one run off. He's like, Dad, did you see me in practice? I was dribbling around everyone. I was twice as fast as everyone on the field. I scored more goals in practice than anyone out there. I was the hardest worker. And you're going to talk to me about taking a runoff at the end of practice, and the best thing you can do for your
practice?
son, Allen Iverson. But yeah, he needs to understand that you're not mad at him. But he just failed himself. He took that run off. And when you take one run off and there's no consequence, right? We don't want to do the hard things. We don't want to do it. Just certain people feel the necessity to do the hard things because they know, like Cristiano Ronaldo said, talent without hard work means nothing. Nothing at all. So the quicker that your son realizes, and there's people that are going to be listening to this and be like, what an asshole. I would hate being this kid's kid, or this guy's kids, or this guy's son. But the truth of the matter is, the quicker your son, if he truly wants to be an elite athlete, if he wants to do elite things in life, he's got to understand that the minute you take one run off, it becomes that much easier to take that second run off.
Yeah, I
and
think
the third and the fourth.
Yeah, you hit on a lot there for me. I say this to my son all the time. That's the difference in being a mediocre player or being a good talent, and being someone great and being someone elite. And you start talking about elite talent. You can be good at beating rec soccer players all you want. I tell my son that all the time. You can go out there and joke around and beat rec soccer players. But if you really want to be elite and you really want to be a professional soccer player, you have to be a professional soccer player around no matter what you're around, no matter who you're around. You have to act like that and be elite. Anybody can be elite versus mediocrity, right? And I think that, I can't tell you the amount of times that I had to stop calling you because I would get excited in sales conversations, in sales situations where I'd be like, I just killed that. I just won. Like, I won. I'm calling Craig. I'd call Craig. I'm like, hey, man, here's what happened. You're like, yeah, it's great. Good job. Fantastic. What about this? Did you ask him about this? And you would continue to ask questions. And I was like, oh, crap. Like, you know what? I could have done better. I could have done something different. And so that coaching mindset from you is something that has always stuck with me, and I will greatly always appreciate from you. And it didn't come out of, let's just call it what it is. A lot of people, I don't want to say it like that, to what we said earlier is, lazy people don't get along with people that work hard, right? And so I think that you were giving everything that you had into CVRX, and I think some people were not on board yet with that. And so there were some people that didn't appreciate that kind of coaching back. I did, just because I knew that you weren't doing it out of malintent. You were doing it out of actually love, that you knew that I could be better and you were doing the best for the business, right? And it wasn't, hey, call them right back and ask them that question. It was, hey, next time you have that situation, let's frame it like this, or let's not stop there. Let's continue to go down the sales path. And I think that's just difference in leadership and difference in a mindset, and if you're going to be mediocre or if you're going to be elite.
Yeah, man, I very much appreciate you saying that. That's one of those differences in that organization. When I realized that what I was giving to the teams, what I was giving of myself wasn't being as appreciated as it once was, I started to realize that the pages were turning in this chapter. This chapter was changing. A new season was coming into the organization. When the organization was small and it was a core group of people that had similar mindsets, yeah, if I wasn't giving my all to coach people, then there was this, they should have been very worried at that time that I didn't think that they could accomplish more, because why would I take my time, which I consider it to be precious? I only have so many hours, the same way anyone else only has a certain number of hours. So I wouldn't waste my time trying to improve someone that I didn't think had the ability, the capacity, or the willingness to want to improve. And yeah, that was dude, that is so tough. I mean, you hitting on that is like right to the heart, because yeah, any conversation I ever had with you was fully out of love. I wanted you to be the best in the organization. I believe that you had that capacity, and I wanted you to just be like when you weren't achieving the success that you wanted to achieve, like it wasn't about, oh, my numbers aren't good enough because Jordan's not getting it done. No, I legitimately felt like I was failing you in a certain way, or whatever messaging or whatever help I could provide to you. I didn't spend enough time with you. And so that was hard for me, because here I'm looking at this person has got all the tools, everything that you need in order to be successful. And you weren't at the levels that you wanted to be, which is why you bailed on me the first time and left me high and dry and stranded, and went and took another job. Still trying to get over that one. But then when I brought you back to lead a sales team, it's because I believed in you, believed in your abilities, and I wanted your mindset and your disciplines and your drive to be an example of others, because that is, in my opinion, that's the best way to build an effective sales team, to build a high powered team, was to have someone lead the way, tip of the spear, setting the pace with all of the attributes that I wanted to be conveyed.
Yeah, you know how when I knew I was all in, and I don't think I've ever told you this or not, but there was a time where we were talking about me coming back or not, right? I remember I was actually already at the other job, and I was in a training session. I was in a hotel, and you called. I remember exactly where I was. It was an A-loft in Arizona. And I was sitting on a window on the air conditioner. I remember like it was yesterday. And Craig calls me, and Craig's talking to me. He's like, I can't believe you left. And, I feel so bad that you weren't achieving what you thought you should have been achieving. And you said, that's my fault, not mine, yours. And you took full ownership of, I should have set you down. I should have talked to you more. I should have done that. Took full ownership of that. And I know it wasn't your fault. It's my fault, right? But you did take ownership of it. And that was different for me. I was like, oh, this dude really does love me. Like, this dude wants me to succeed. He wants the organization to succeed. He believes in me. And he wants to bring me back to be successful. That's ultimately the reason I came back. It wasn't to lead a sales team. It was because I knew I was going to be successful, because I was surrounded by someone who cared about my success. And that was new for me, right? Like it's always been like, hey, what have you done for me lately? Not, hey, I care about you and I want you to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, look, we went from 0 reps to, before we knew it, started with like 5 and then 10, and then you know the story. Before you know it, you've got 100 sales reps, and there aren't 100. I want to phrase this properly, but as you add people to a team, you're definitely watering down talent. You're definitely watering down mindsets and philosophies. Not everyone is going to run as hard. Once you start to have big numbers, you start to see, and for me, that was eye-opening, because that's what really made me so happy and proud of the individuals, the core individuals that were here. And I just wanted to throw my arms around all of them and thank them for the endless effort and all of the hard work, the pushing and the pulling that they did at the start of this to truly get that therapy off the ground. And when I see attributes and people that are different, that hit on so many different levels, and then they're not achieving the level of success that they want to achieve, I mean, it is for me, I definitely take responsibility in that, because I feel like I didn't put you in the right positions. It'd be, to do a football reference, it's like I've got this 5-star recruit, and ultimately they transferred out because I kept trying to put them in a position that wasn't right for them. Or I put them in a position and didn't run the offense around them properly. You hear about this all the time. You'll have these quarterbacks that go to these teams and everyone thinks they suck. They're not good. They're garbage. And then they get into another system, like they go to Minnesota and they start working with Kevin O'Connell, and all of a sudden they're Pro Bowl quarterbacks.
Yep.
They're awesome. And so when I have situations like you leaving, and I will say the other part of that really gets me is because you were my first regrettable loss. You were the first person that I truly did not want to leave, that I truly was pissed off when you left. And so like I had to figure out a way to bring you back. I wasn't going to be able to frickin' sleep at night if I didn't figure out a way to get you back. And so it's like I just felt like I didn't run the offense. Maybe the plan of attack that I had wasn't the right plan of attack for you at that time. And so I felt like it was a miss, that I definitely missed that opportunity for you.
I think we both missed on the opportunity, but I think we missed for a reason, right? We got the chance to come back together. We got the chance to do something truly special. And now look at us now, right? We're on a podcast talking about
that's right, baby,
different things. Yeah, we're here now.
Yeah, we are here now.
Let's talk about something off topic. Earlier you said something about a galaxy. What do you think the chances are, throw out way left field, what do you think the chances are we actually landed on the moon?
If you would have asked me a bunch of years ago, I would have looked at you so sideways to assume, like, wait, I'd have been like, the fuck are you talking about? Of course we landed on the moon. And it wouldn't have even remotely occurred to me that there were thoughts, that there were ideas, that there were people out there that were debunking the idea that we landed on the moon. I don't know how we just got on this topic, dude, but I'm gonna roll with it because I have a good buddy of mine. We went to college together, and his wife is someone that started just pelting me with all of these different like videos and excerpts and factoids debunking landing on the moon and all of these things. And then you start seeing all of these things in succession and you're like, oh my God, there's no way we landed on the moon.
No way.
That's the biggest bunch of bullshit I've ever seen.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that, I think there's no way. I love that we're talking about it. So my biggest thing is, what I hear all the time, like you watch all the videos, right? And I heard this one that said, we've never had a technological advancement go backwards. Like talk about computers, talk about TVs, cars, cell phones, whatever it is, electronics, home building, whatever you want. We've never had something that we developed to go backwards. Nothing.
Okay.
You can't give me one thing except going to the moon for some reason.
We just chose not to ever do it again.
We can't do it again. We can't do it.
I mean, that right there, I get what you're saying, but is the juice worth the squeeze to go back to the moon again? Is there anything there that's worth it? I don't know. So that argument doesn't have as strong as a hold on me as this one. And it is no one really once someone asks you this question, you never look at it the same way. But who filmed Neil Armstrong walking out on the moon? Because that dude was the first person to ever walk on the moon.
That's easy one. I've heard that one before, that they had a camera sitting out there. Like they deployed, listen, somehow, there was a camera. Like they brought like a rover, they brought several things somehow to the moon, and there was a camera set up that they had dropped out on the moon that just happened to land perfectly, still shot. But I heard this the other day, a guy was like, you're telling me that this it traveled 1 million, how many ever miles it is, this rocket traveled 1 million and something miles and never had to stop for maintenance, never had to do anything. And they can take a car, the rover, all the way to the moon, control it from Earth. They controlled the rover from Earth somehow. And I can't get Wi-Fi in my garage.
Bro, I was just going to say, I can't get a cell signal on the 73 toll road. So I'm with you there. I get it. That is a good question. But
so here's a challenge to you. So how do we bring the moon back to? We just talked about landing on the moon. How do we bring that back to the business world? How are we landing on the moon?
Business world?
Yeah.
I can bring it back to the business world really easy, because a lot of people spent a lot of time. Let's assume that it wasn't real. Okay, let's assume that no one landed on the moon. A lot of people made it their jobs to play pretend and to have this facade and this ruse that we landed on the moon. So how you bring it back to business is this craving of getting back to authenticity and moving away from bullshit. And the sooner that we have leaders that do not allow the mockery of just going about your day to just try and preserve your job, or just to be full of crap whenever you're talking about a situation, get back to extreme ownership and full ownership, and everyone having accountability of the roles they're supposed to provide for an organization, the better we're all going to be.
I love I love getting down to the nitty gritty about that. I of course know what you're talking about. I had to deal with it firsthand of new leadership coming in, and I remember the first day that new leadership came in and wrote on a board everything that they stand for. And then a couple of months later, finding myself on the outside of the organization, looking back, being like, that very first day he came in, all that was a facade. And none of that was true. And so then you really start to learn, people's management style and leadership style that comes in and says one thing and then does the other. And I was on the unfortunate side of that. So were you. But I think we ultimately got to look at it and say, good. And,
good.
What do we learn from it? And I think we're better from it.
I believe we're definitely better from it.
The Louis Vuitton belt's good.
Yeah. All right. Good. Excellent. Speaking of the old company that doesn't seem to be able to figure things out as of late, it's funny. All of a sudden, I've been hearing from a lot of people over there.
Oh, you're not blackballed anymore?
I don't know if I'm sure I'm still blackballed, oddly enough, but I've been hearing a lot more of the sales team has felt comfortable reaching out to me to tell me about how things are going over there. So it's interesting. I didn't hear it from any of these people, last year, but now I'm getting to hear from them.
Yeah, I got told whenever you weren't there anymore, I got told that I should steer clear from you.
Yeah.
So you saw how that worked out. I really listened to that.
I don't want to hear that, because I had enough guilt. I had enough guilt that I had something to do with
that you left me.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
You know what your Louis Vuitton belt reminds me of?
What?
Speaking of the old company, when you came out rapping at a national sales meeting. Oh, can I also say that I remember it was the Friday, I believe it was the first national sales meeting I was at. Maybe it was the second. When was it that you had me try on our scrubs? Was that the first?
That was the first. That was the first one. Yeah, that was the one. That was the one when we were in Miami.
Yeah. And I remember that I felt like I had an inside plug because I was, I was wearing the scrubs. I was modeling the scrubs.
Yeah.
And so I was getting to go back into the room that was blocked off, before anybody else. And I walked in, and I'll never forget this. I was like, oh, he's talking to somebody. And it was like an animated talk. And then I walked around the corner, and you were giving your speech that you were about to give at the national sales meeting. And I'm like, it really hit me. I was like, I don't think that, I've never seen it before, but I don't think that any speaker that I've ever seen in a national sales meeting, like a VP of sales or something like that, would practice their speech beforehand. And that was really impressive to me, that somebody was trying to do the best they could to excite an organization, to leave with passion for an organization. So kudos to you for that.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, that stuff meant an awful lot to me. I mean, as I've said earlier in this conversation, I was so impressed, and I so appreciated the efforts of everyone to move that engine up the hill that we had when we first started. And so I just wanted to be able to give something back. And truthfully, I felt like if I didn't deliver in those moments, I just wanted people to feel like they were in the right place. Not everyone was making the level of money that we discussed when they were being recruited. And I just wanted to do whatever I could to let them know that, they were in a good place. And as sales leadership goes, I was going to do everything that I could to keep everyone motivated and inspired. And yeah, that stuff really mattered to me. And you talk about preparation. I mean, that's what a topic of one of the podcasts I did, a previous episode. I don't know how many people truly understand how prepared you need to be to deliver excellence. And you mentioned Saban's talk about exceptional people will always feel that they've dropped the ball on something, or didn't prepare enough, or didn't do everything they could. And that stuff's a double-edged sword, because you cannot find perfection. It doesn't exist. You can chase it. Sometimes that leads to a little bit of an unfulfilled, empty life if you're forever chasing perfection. But when it comes to preparing like you want to be perfect, I don't know how else to go about it. But if the minute you start to think that you've been doing this for 20, 30 years, you think you're hot shit, you think you got it, start cutting corners, taking runs off, it's when you slip up, you miss, and there's someone else who's hungrier, more diligent, preparing more than you are. And I ain't willing to let that happen yet.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the continuing to sharpen your sword, right? I think that as salespeople, when you start talking about doing it 15, 20 years, and I can't believe that I've been doing it, throwing out those numbers this long. But I think in the beginning, when you start going about sales, I don't know if we've talked about this or not, but when I came out of college, I sold cars when I was in college. I was the dreaded used car salesman. And I went to selling copiers, and so I was the dreaded copier salesman, right?
Yeah, that's a good path, man. It's
yeah. I think, I used to be embarrassed of the path, right? Because I've had a ton of jobs, and I used to be embarrassed of it. I'm like, hey, I was a job hopper, or whatever you want to call it. But then I just quickly realized that I had a lot more experience selling different things and different avenues and finding different ways to win. So I'm no longer embarrassed about it. But
yeah, you shouldn't be, because it sets you up on the right path. Like it's having that experience, different experiences, is fantastic.
Yeah, but I think when you start talking about doing it 15, 20, 30 years, whatever it is, I think that you lose the basics, right? And something as simple as pre-call planning, I think, goes out the window. You start talking about these people that have been reps, like these Gore reps that have been around for 20 years, and they just walk in and talk to people, and they're like, hey, I'm with Gore, or hey, I'm with Abbott, or one of the big box names. They have no pre-call planning. They BS and try to figure out their way. And I think that's sticking to the basics, and continuing to fine tune the basics and such as pre-call planning or whatever it is something that continues, I think, to get pushed to the wayside, and is a big miss, I think, these days, is with leadership and getting back to the basics. You read Kobe's book, the Mamba Mentality. Even when he was a pro and had been to all the All-Star games, won championships, he still did basic dribbling skills every single day. He got back to the basics every single day. And I think we could do that and learn from that and do more of that on the daily basis, as far as getting back to the basics, and whether it's time management, whether it's pre-call planning, whether it's doing your homework on your actual device and how your actual device works. I think we miss that these days.
I mean, I'm going to agree with that. I mean, so I've been tasked with running the sales training for our sales team. this new organization I'm with at Envision Eye Centers. And
Can I stop you for a second? You just got a promotion, right?
I did just get a promotion.
Congratulations. Congratulations. I'm sorry, I don't think I've told you that. Continue on.
Thank you very much. No, it's a big deal, and I'm really excited. And so that was one of the things that going into this recent board meeting is that they put even more trust and faith into me, and so I needed to make sure that I didn't take anything off, and I just wanted to make sure that I was prepared and deliver there. And now I got a responsibility to deliver. We're in a real transformative time of the organization, and I've actually been able to utilize a lot of the Simple system. I've actually deployed the Simple system over with the new organization and the new reps, and the idea of looking at leading indicators and activity-based metrics and mixing that in with productivity-based metrics to be able to get real-time feedback on what it is you're doing. But one of the other big things that I've been focusing on, so you mentioned preparation, pre-call planning, and it gets this like negative, this negative outlook, this negative connotation on pre-call planning. People hear that and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so boring and stale." Only rookies have to pre-call plan and stuff like that. And it's not. It's your review of game film. It's your study of the team. If you don't pre-call plan, which is your strategy, but it's deeper than that. You got to identify the customer you're seeing. You have to know how they're built in order so you can even develop a strategy. And then the pre-call plan is all about how you're going to go about getting from your point A to point B. And so trying to convey the importance of preparation and pre-call planning when going into a sales meeting is very difficult. But I will say that this group I'm working with now, the sales reps I'm working with now, they have been more open to this idea and going after this new approach like nothing I've ever seen. I've been so impressed with this group. It's been awesome, and they're embracing it. And some have been doing business one way for an awful long time, and this is truly shaking up the day to day. And they're willing to give it a try, and they recognize the opportunity to be better, to improve. And so it's been a hell of an experience. But anyone that isn't willing to put the work in, anyone who's not willing to truly improve themselves day over day, week over week, isn't doing themselves or their businesses a service.
Yeah, stay in the status quo. That's a frustration right now from the my son's soccer team. I mean, they're a competitive soccer club. They're trying to compete on a national level, and there's tryouts. And I think they have 13 different competitive teams for his age. And, there's a first team, there's a second team, there's a third team. And, we win a majority of the games in the first team. And, there's some of the kids that are like on the bottom half or the bottom third of, the skill level and work ethic and just team all around. When you talk to the coach about it, the coach goes, "We didn't lose very many games, so why would we need to change anything?" And I think when you start talking about some of these bigger companies that have kind of been on top and why they fall off. When I very first started working in the peripheral vascular space with Cordis, they had the Cypher stent. It was the first ever drug-eluting stent for the coronaries, and they were killing everybody. They were making money hand over fist. And they got complacent. And I think complacency is something that, kills a lot, not just people, not just sales reps where they're at, but companies in general. And, Cordis took a nosedive for years. I think Cordis is still trying to recover from the whole Cypher mishap.
I agree with that as well. I am, and this, it's any of my, if I'm doing sales training or just trying to talk about self-building and self-reliance and improvement, it's about looking at yourself, where you are, figuring out ways to baseline today. And don't worry about what anybody else is doing, being in competition with yourself. I know companies get big on President's Club and You finish first in the company and you finish second, top 10 get to go on a trip. And that's all good and important.
Sure.
But the truth of the matter is, if you were to just focus on being better today than you were yesterday, and I know that becomes cliched and people say that over and over again, but how many of us truly not only just embrace and understand that concept, but actually figure out a way to measure that concept and improve upon that concept? You can't just say, I'm going to be better today than I was yesterday, or I'm going to be better tomorrow than I was today. You can't just say it and it happens. You have to develop a strategy to measure what it is you're doing and what the results are, and figure out a way to make sure that you're having incremental wins, stacking incremental wins day after day after day. That is the definition of consistency, and consistency is the greatest thing we have for building anything remarkable in our lives, with business, personal lives, you name it.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think it all comes down to discipline, right? Being disciplined enough to come up with it, not only just a strategy of measuring yourself, but actually having something that, looking at it, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, and saying, how do I measure that? And can it be measured? And not just setting goals for yourself that you're like, hey, like to your point, I'm doing this, my activity is this, but how do you measure your activity? Are you measuring against your activity from the prior quarter? Are you measuring your activity versus not just yourself, but everyone else that's winning, right? And continue to surround yourself and model yourself around other people that are successful. I think there's a lot to be learned from different sports, right? And different people in different sports. I mean, you hit on earlier that some people think pre-call planning is for rookies. And I'm like, I wonder what you'd tell Tom Brady when he's going into like his, I don't know how many seasons, he was like 20 seasons or something. He's like 15 seasons in, and he's watching pregame film. And they're like, oh, that's for rookies, as he's continuing to win championships. So,
dude, Peyton, it's been said that Peyton Manning watched more game film than the offensive and defensive coordinators combined, and he wanted to have an edge. And the only way you have an edge is to out-prepare the person that you're going against. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And this is something like when you talk about parenting, but it's one of the more difficult lessons to teach, the power of preparation, the power of improvement. You mentioned your son. He hasn't had to have a lot of setbacks so far. He's from what I hear, he's an amazing athlete. He's at the tops of whatever it is he's doing. He's on the first team. He's a standout athlete. And so you do run the risk, and I know that you coach him up, and you're hard on him, you're diligent on him, because you want him to be disciplined, because he needs to understand that the minute that you do get complacent and get soft, it's going to be like Cordis, and people will pass you by. But if you only experience success, it's going to be very difficult to understand and learn that lesson.
Yeah, that's a struggle. My wife and I talk about it all the time. It is a struggle. Parenting, number one, is the hardest thing you'll ever do. I'm fully convinced of that. Well, my wife and I talk about it all the time. Like you work every day and try to be this provider for your kids to live this awesome life. And then in turn, you're really not doing nothing but cheating them out of the tough times, right? Because tough times build tough people. And they're just... we're missing that these days as parents. It's way easier said than done. Like, what do you do? Like these kids these days just don't understand that these tough situations, whether they want to do it or not. Like it's preparing for singing or practicing your basics for soccer or whatever it is. They just we're cheating them these days. And I don't know. I'm up for anybody that listens to this to give me some tips on parenting. I'm willing to learn.
And that is the $1 million question. I mean, our eyes are wide open enough to see it happening in front of our faces. It's, we've created this life because we have chips on our shoulder from how we grew up, because we wanted good things. So we developed our grit and diligence and discipline because we knew that we wanted to excel. And because of that, we've been very fortunate to create these lives for our families that we get to live with them, but they are along for the ride. And because of that, they don't develop that same level of grit because they aren't wanting for anything. They're not pining for anything. They don't feel like they're getting screwed over out of anything ever. It's constant attention. It's constant fulfilling of their wants and needs and desires. You know, think of. I don't know how you grew up, but we would take family vacations, and my parents were awesome. Right. They showed me nothing but love and everything growing up. And they did everything they could to provide the best life for my brother and I. And ultimately, they did me a few of the greatest gifts. And they gave me a college education. And, I never looked back after that. But we'd go on vacations, and it would be driving down to Florida from New York on I-95. And we would stay at the Days Inn motel, and it'd be a real treat if we stayed at some, pseudo fancy hotel once we got to the destination, or we went to Disney World once in a while and stayed at some resort there. But it was few and far between. Most of the hotels we stayed in had good old vending machines, and you parked at the room. And now we'll go to places, and we're fortunate that, whether you have points for things or you want to stay at a nice hotel, whether it be in Mexico or Hawaii or a trip to Europe, and you stay in nice hotels, and these kids have no idea what roughing it is. They think that this is normal. They think this is what life is supposed to be.
Yeah, how crazy is that?
To your point, we're doing them a disservice.
Yeah, that's the old adage, I forget exactly how it goes. I'm gonna botch it by saying it, but like his great grandfather walks 5 miles to work every day. The grandfather walks 2. Your dad drives Ford to work, now doesn't have to walk, and then his son drives a Bentley, and then his son will be driving a Lamborghini, and then it starts back over, right? And then his kid will be walking. Yeah, his kid will be walking 5 miles. So it's a fine line. You're trying to do the best you can, and sometimes you're coming up failing, but I think we're doing a little bit better. We're trying to figure it out. We're saying no more often than yes, I think, these days. My main thing growing up, like, we didn't go on vacations, right? Like, we didn't have money to go on vacations. My main thing was shoes. And so if I ever got like a new pair of shoes, I was taking care of my shoes. Like, I mean, I can't tell you. Still to this day, Craig, if I get a pair of Jordans, I'm not wearing my Jordans out on a dreary day. I don't walk through grass. I don't care where you see me. I don't care. You will see me take the sidewalk because I don't want to get grass or mud on my shoes.
But these kids.
Fast forward to my kid will get some new Jordans or new Dunks and literally wear them to school one day and come back and there's mud on them. And I'm like, What are you doing? Like I would have killed for those shoes when I was yours.
Yeah, but you don't understand. It ain't even in the frame of reference of their mind that this is an issue. Like, it's not even, and you can't just automatically teach that type of thing. There's no way that you can properly convey, even if you're intense and you're trying to really teach a lesson, it will still fall on deaf ears. It's crazy. My older daughter just got her driver's license. And I've got a Tesla, and so I've been letting her drive the Tesla. And the way that car operates, it's easier when you're parking it to back into a space. And so one of the things that I was real diligent on, I was teaching, you can't just pull ahead into a space because something's going to happen. So always back in. She wasn't doing it at first. And on the Tesla, you can activate the cameras when the car's parked, so you can see exactly which direction you're parked. And so, I'd take some screenshots and stuff like this, and I'd let her know. It's like, if this continues, you're not going to be able to drive. And so finally, because of this fear of this consequence of missing out, I've noticed that she's backing into spots now. And then the other morning, I noticed that when she unplugged the charger, she just has it just laying on the damn ground. And whenever I unplug the car, it's always coiled nicely on a little hanger and everything, and just looking good. And I go out there and the thing's just thrown on the ground. And I was very clear. I said, look, I'm not going to just yell at you. I'm not going to just endlessly just come at you for something. I'm just letting you know. If you don't coil up the charger the way it's supposed to be. You don't drive the car. That's it. Not going to lecture you. This is your one time. I'm going to give you a pass. You don't treat an expensive car, which it is, like you understand the value of it. You will not drive it. And I'll go and you'll drive a car that costs, $5,000, $10,000.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in,
Yeah. I think my first car I remember was a 93 Chevy short wide bed single cab truck that was $5,500.
Yeah.
Black in color. Silverado across the back. But my wife and I talk about that all the time. The most challenging part about that is it all sounds great, right? But you have to be willing to follow through with that. Like I do with that to my son all the time. I'm like, if you don't do this or you do this, here's your consequences. And it's very easy to have those consequences one time, but are you going to continue to have those consequences time and time again? And that's the challenging part, especially with kids.
Of course it is.
No.
Yeah. So what do you think, dude?
About what? This? It's awesome.
Yeah. You like it?
Yeah, it's fun. It's awesome.
I told you to like it.
Yeah. We need to come up with topics and do it more often.
Yeah, we can make this a regular thing. We just got to get you a mic that works. And I'll send you
zero direction with that. You're like, hey, get a mic. I got zero direction.
That is bullshit.
You sent me this one.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
That was I sent you that one. No. I was gonna order that one for you at the Best Buy because you said you're gonna go pick it up, and then I realized that's the wrong. They don't have the one that's the USB, and you would never know how to figure out handling an XLR rep. So I didn't order that one for you. And I told you just to get that blue mic because you also didn't want to have to get one where you needed a stand. Remember, you're like, oh, I want the all-in-one. So then I sent you the other one, the blue Yeti mic or whatever it was. Yeah. But I'll show you the mic to get. You already have the stand. You're good. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. It's the same one, just with a USB.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Jordan, I can't thank you enough for being a part of Eyes Wide, the podcast. I believe that this is going to be the start of you and I doing a lot more of these episodes. So I'm real excited about that. There's so many good things for you and I to continue discussing. So I hope that you enjoyed yourself and that you're willing to maybe come on again and have another conversation with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you inviting me on multiple times. And I apologize for taking so long to get on. But love doing it, love talking. I vote for more off-the-wall topics, see if we landed on the moon or if there's aliens or Sasquatches out there. So looking forward to talking about that. Hey,
man, you got it, man. You're the guest. We can take this any way you want it. And I very much look forward to that. I'll go ahead and close this. As always, this life is what you make of it. The future you is waiting to meet the current you. Continue to keep the promises you make to yourself and fight like hell to bring your tomorrow into today. Until we meet again, eyes wide, see everything. Goodbye.